Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Sarah and today I'll be taking you through your class. So today's class is designed around the warrior poses. So we'll be working with a flow that's called Dancing Warrior. The flow today is a beginners to improvers to intermediates class. It's welcome to all, but there will be lots of modifications along the way, and yeah, so if you want any props for your practice as well, if you're practicing from home and you have blocks or a bolster, feel free to incorporate those. If you don't, maybe get creative, inviting some shoe boxes or something like that might give you a little bit of elevation off the floor if you don't want to come all the way down to the floor, for example, during certain postures that we'll go through today. Lovely. So when you're ready, you're going to come to find a comfortable seat on your mat. So that might be seated as I am here, or maybe you're coming over the tops of the heels, or maybe you might even like to begin your practice laying. And placing the hands anywhere on the body or maybe off of the body, just coming to find a setup that feels right for you. And then when you feel ready, we're going to close down the eyes, or maybe take a soft gaze out in front of you if closing down the eyes is not there for you today. And we're turning our attention inwards. And begin your practice today with some breath awareness. So when you feel ready, slowly start to bring your awareness to the breath. To the inhale and to the exhale. And we're not forcing anything or changing anything within the breath. We are just merely observing our inhale and our exhale. And staying with that focus, with that awareness, following the breath in and out. Knowing that if the mind wanders, this is perfectly normal. Just gently bringing it back to the awareness of the breath. Maybe noticing where the breath is in the body. And maybe you notice the rise and fall of the stomach. And maybe it's in the chest. Or maybe you notice the air coming in and out through the nostrils, the warmth or the cooling of the air. All while maintaining our awareness on the breath, coming in and out. And then taking 3 to 4 more rounds of observing the breath coming in or out. Taking your time, there is no rush. And then when you feel ready, letting go of any practice of awareness of the breath. So allowing the natural rhythm of the breath to come into play. And then coming to open up the eyes if you've closed down the eyes. And finding your way into a kneeling position. If kneeling's not there for you today, feel free to stay seated on the bolster or whatever prop you might have chosen to sit on. I'm just coming to find a comfortable setup when you're ready. And we're bringing a nice length into the spine. Crown is drawing up towards the ceiling. Sit bones are firming in towards the ground beneath you. And then coming to raise the right arm up towards the ceiling, taking your left hand down beside you. we're going to reach over towards the left side of the room for a lateral stretch along the right side of the body. Maybe you're on your fingertips here for the first round. And then coming over to the other side. So placing the right hand down, extending the left arm up towards the ceiling, and then coming to lean over towards the right, finding that stretch across the left side of the body. And then for your next transition, coming back over towards the left side. This time the palm might come down as the right arm stretches over towards the left side, finding a deeper stretch across the right side of the body. Still firming down through both sit bones, so the right hip is still anchored towards the foundation beneath you. Coming over to the right side, the right palm might place down to the mat as we extend the left arm up towards the right side of the room. And then taking one more round like so on each side. And maybe the gaze is down towards the mat, or maybe it's up towards the ceiling. And finding your variation of this movement here before coming back through center. And then just taking a moment here. And then next we're transitioning into cat-cow, but this is seated cat-cow. So you might like to have the hands maybe onto the thighs, or maybe they're hovering in front, on top of the thighs, maybe they're not physically touching. And then next, drawing the chin towards the chest, sending the spine towards the back of the room as the hands come down towards the knees for cat pose. We're sliding the hands up towards the hip creases and pushing the chest forward, chin comes up ever so slightly, and we're arching through the lower back for cat. And we're moving between these two movements. Come to find your cow pose, your cat pose, sorry, and then into your cow pose. Maybe finding your rhythm of movement here, however fast or slow you wish to take this movement. And taking 2 more rounds in your own time. And using the breath to guide you. And maybe inviting an inhale in on your cow pose, and an exhale in on your cat pose. Or vice versa, just finding whatever rhythm of breath works for you. Before coming to find a neutral spine. We're back into our center here. And then coming to bring the hands up. So we're coming to do some wrist rolls here. So taking the fingers, creating a little fist. It's not necessarily tight fist, the fingers can be loose. And just rolling out through the wrist. So we're circling out here. And taking them one way, and then when you feel like you've done 2 more rounds, we're taking them the opposite way. So we're turning the rotation back the other way. We spend a lot of time on our wrists in yoga, so it's quite important to show them some love, show them some care before we begin our practice, even at the end of our practice. And then coming to let go of that movement and finding our way into a tabletop. So coming off any props that you might have chosen to use, putting them to one side maybe for later, and finding your way into tabletop. So we're coming to find hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips or thereabouts. Next movement we're coming into is a thread the needle. So we're going to begin with the right arm to begin with. So extending the right arm out towards the side, about shoulder height. Now you might even like to have a little prop or block or pillow or something in front of you here as we come through this movement. So we're taking the hand out towards the side, and then you might like to extend that movement ever so slightly so the chest rotates out towards that side. The fingertips might come up to the corner of the room or maybe up towards the ceiling, and then we're taking that hand and we're threading it through the gap between the left hand and the left knee, coming down towards the mat just for a second as we come back up again. We're just twisting back out towards the side or coming up to shoulder height. And then we're coming to thread the needle one more time. And then taking that movement one more time, and then the next time that we come through, we're coming to either place the head down towards the mat, the side of the forehead, or if that doesn't suit you today, you might come to place the side of the right head down towards a prop, maybe a block or a pillow. And if you want more here, you might like to extend that left arm out towards the top of the mat, firming down through the hands. And then coming back through center, maybe you take a counter action, coming back out into that rotation towards the right before the right hand comes down to meet the left. And then next we're coming onto the left side. So extending the left arm out towards the side, about shoulder height, and then testing your range here, seeing where you can go but still maintaining integrity. Can you breathe here? Before weaving that hand through that gap and taking 2 rounds of movement or flow here. Before coming to place the head either down towards the mat or down towards a prop. That left arm is threading through. Sit bones are high. Maybe the right hand walks forward towards the top of the mat, helping to rotate that chest over towards the left side of the mat. And then coming to bring that right hand back in. Maybe you take a counter action here. And then coming to place the left hand down towards the mat. Next movement we're going to practice is a few knee hovers. So there is a little bit of pressure here on the wrists. So maybe taking the hands, a little handprint out ahead of you, so they're not completely underneath the shoulders. I'm going to come to tuck the toes. And then really maybe pushing back the hips. So we're not coming all the way back necessarily, but we're pushing into the hips, into the toes, finding a little bit of bounce there. And maybe you just lift one knee to begin with. Maybe you lift the right knee, so it hovers maybe an inch off the mat, and then place that right knee down. And then maybe you experiment with lifting the left knee, so it's hovering just about an inch off the mat. And then placing that down. And then next you might like to stay with hovering each knee, before you then practice maybe hovering the knees here both together. And maybe that looks like you're hovering them for literally a split second. Or maybe you are hovering them here for a breath in and out. And then coming to place the knees down, coming to sit over the tops of the heels. Just taking a moment here to notice the breath, notice the body. And then coming back into tabletop, taking the hands a handprint out ahead of you, coming to tuck the toes, and we're finding our way into your first downward facing dog. So sending the energy back into those toes as we hover the knees and then lift the hips up and back for downward facing dog. And maybe taking a moment to pedal out the feet here, and a nice generous bend in the knees still. The head is in between the arms. We're sending the chest towards the thighs. And maybe taking some movement, pedaling the feet one more time. And then on your next breath, we're coming back into tabletop. Back down. Sending the hips back into a child's pose. Maybe the forehead comes to the mat, or maybe it's hovering in between the arms. As we then come back into tabletop, we lift the hips up and back for downward dog again. So we're going to take this 2 more times. Coming back into your tabletop. Send the hips back for child's pose. Maybe the head touches for a moment. Coming back into your tabletop. Keeping the toes tucked, knees lift, hips up and back for downward dog. One more round, guys. Back into tabletop. Back into child pose. Coming back into tabletop. Keeping the toes tucked, lifting the hips, lifting the knees up and back for downward facing dog. And then finding some stillness here. or taking some movement, whatever's calling to you today. And then when you feel ready, we're going to walk the hands towards the back of the mat, coming into a forward fold. So your variation of forward fold might be bringing the elbows towards the knees. Maybe the hands are towards a block. Or maybe the hands, palms, fingertips are towards the floor. Nice generous bend in the knees if you need it here today. Allowing the head and neck to be heavy. Maybe taking hold of opposite elbows if that is also there for you today. Allowing the body to feel heavy to drape over the tops of the thighs. And on your next breath, letting go of the hands if you've taken that option. Firming down through the feet. Really grounding down through that big toe, the little toe, the heel. As we then bend the knees and come up to rise, allowing the arms to be really heavy. Chin is the last thing to come up, taking the arms out nice and wide. Bringing the hands up above the head, palms might meet, and then the hands draw down through heart center. Bringing the hands beside you, finding yourself in your Tadasana pose. And then when you feel ready, bringing the hands up above the head, palms might meet. And then as we bring them down through heart center this time, we're bending the knees, folding over the tops of the thighs, coming back into that forward fold. And then coming to find your halfway lift. So the hands are coming towards the shins. We're straightening the legs. Maybe there's still a micro bend in the knees. Nice flat back. So we're sending the sit bones energetically behind us to the back of the room. And gazes down towards the mat. And then coming to find our way onto the mat. So we're coming to find a downward dog. So hands are crawling back out. And then once you've found your way into your downward dog, just taking a moment here. And then from your downward dog, extending the right leg behind you. So we're taking the right leg so it's about hip height. Maybe the toes are pointed or flexed. We're bending the knee and we're bringing the knee towards the chest, towards the nose. Stepping that foot through. If you need a helping hand, bring that hand towards the foot to help it through. Spiraling that back foot down so the toes are roughly about 45 degrees along the long edge of the mat. And then firming down through both feet. Finding a sense of engagement through the legs, evenly distributed before coming up to rise for Warrior One. Maybe the hands are above the head, maybe they're at heart center, or maybe they're even on towards the hips. I'm just taking a moment here to notice your foundation of your Warrior One. Does this feel right for you? If not, play with the variations of the toes. Not necessarily do they have to stay where they have landed when you first came into this posture. And bringing the hands up towards the ceiling if they're not there already. Fanning the arms out so they're at shoulder height. Turning those toes out towards the long edge of the mat to find Warrior Two. And then when you feel ready, turning that front palm over. And we're sending that hand up towards the ceiling. So the right fingertips are up towards the ceiling. This left arm might be down the back of the left leg, or maybe it's on towards the hip. And the gaze might be up towards the ceiling or towards the front of the room if that's too much for the neck. Or maybe even down towards the back left foot. And then coming back through Warrior Two. Extending those arms out to shoulder height or even maybe to heart center if the shoulders are feeling a bit fatigued. Extending those arms out long if they're not already there. And we're taking the right elbow towards the right knee. Coming to side angle. You maybe give yourself a little adjustment, taking that left hand underneath that right rib cage to turn it out towards the side of the mat. Before extending that right arm up to left arm up towards the ceiling or maybe on towards the hip. And taking the gaze to wherever feels right for you, towards the front of the room, maybe down to that right foot. Just noticing, are we dumping all that weight into that right leg? Can we find some sense of strength here? And then coming back up to rise, finding your Warrior Two. And then cartwheeling the hands so we're framing that right foot. stepping that right foot back to meet the left foot and coming to place the knees down, either sitting over the tops of the thighs or maybe taking a child's pose here. And just coming to notice how the breath might have changed in the body since the beginning of your practice. Maybe there's nothing to notice. Maybe noticing how the right side of the body feels after moving through those asanas compared to the left side. Beautiful work. And when you're ready, coming to open up the eyes, coming to find a tabletop. Taking the hands, a handprint out ahead of you, before coming to tuck the toes, hover the knees and lift the hips up and back for downward facing dog. On your next breath, moving into three-legged dog, extending that left leg back and up. Legs about hip height or thereabouts. Toes might be pointed or flexed to find that engagement. And then bending the knee, bringing the knee towards the chest, stepping that foot forward, giving it a little helping hand if it's needed. And then coming to spiral that back foot down so the toes are facing the long edge of the mat about 45 degrees. Firming down into both feet. Really finding that sense of engagement, firming down that even distributed weight from front foot to back foot before coming up to rise to warrior one. Taking any hand variation here that's calling to you. Once again, bringing in awareness to the body, to the bottom half. Could we make some adjustments here so we feel more at home in this pose? And then coming to fan the arms out so they're shoulder height, turning that back foot so the toes are facing the long edge of the mat. Coming to find warrior two. Gazing over the front fingertips, finding your drishti, your focus. Turning that front palm over so the palm is facing the ceiling, bringing the fingertips up towards the ceiling. That right hand might come to hip or down the back leg for reverse warrior. Taking your gaze wherever feels right for you. And then coming to find your warrior two one more time. And then we're taking this left elbow towards the left knee for side angle. Once again, using maybe the right hand to adjust the left rib cage so it's coming through a little bit more, and then extending that right arm up towards the ceiling or maybe on towards the hip. Noticing once again, are we dumping all our energy into the elbow, into that left leg? Can we find a sense of engagement, a sense of strength here to create some form of levitation through that elbow maybe? So not all the weight is there. Coming back through warrior two. And then coming to frame that front foot. Stepping the left foot back to meet the right foot. Coming back into a child's pose or to sit over the tops of the heels. Taking a moment here. And then when you feel ready, coming to open up the eyes if you've closed down the eyes, and finding our way to stand so that we're in the middle of our mat. So we are facing the long edge of the mat. We're going to come to find a wide-legged forward fold. So maybe to begin with, you might like to take the legs just about hip width, come to hip width, and then maybe taking them one or two footprints out past the hips. And this might be where you want to begin. So we're bringing the hands towards the hips. Crown is drawing up towards the ceiling. We're creating length through the spine, length through the body. Really firming down through the feet, grounding down through the feet. And then we're coming to bring the body so that it's parallel towards the floor. Sending the hips behind us, sit bones behind us. And then coming back up to rise. You might like to stay where you are or maybe heel toe the feet out a little bit more. Maybe you want to adventure with exploring turning the toes inwards. And then on your next breath, we're coming back to do this one more time. Coming over to bring the body so it's parallel to the floor, sending sit bones behind us, hands are towards the hips. And then on the next breath, coming back up one more time. And then you might like to have a prop close by, maybe a block, or bolster or cushion or anything that you're utilising today in your practice. And maybe you stay with the width of the feet that you have, or maybe you take them a little bit wider one more time. And maybe just checking in with those toe placements. Did it feel good for you turning them inwards? Or maybe placing them so that the toes are facing the long edge of the mat again. And then stand it up nice and tall, hinging at the hips, coming to fold so that we're parallel towards the floor. And this time you might like to stay here, or you might like to bring your hands towards the props that you're using, or maybe you're bringing the hands towards the floor, coming to find your wide-legged forward fold. And if you're down here and you feel like you've got more depth and you want to go more, maybe you are heel-toeing those feet out a little bit more. But it was really listening to your body here. And then on your next breath, coming up back to halfway lift, falling down through the feet, coming up to rise all the way. Heel toeing the feet back in through centre nice and slowly. And then we're finding our way down on towards the mat. So coming back down towards the mat. We're coming to find a single leg forward fold. So if you are using a pillow, or you have a rolled up t-shirt or rolled up jumper or something alongside you, it's really great for this posture to incorporate this in here as we come to sit. I'll just show you from the side on the edge of our prop. So it helps to create a little bit of pelvic tilt and create some ease into this movement here for you. But also everybody's bodies are different, so you might find that you don't like that pelvic tilt, so not necessarily do you have to use it. But it's always good to try both options and see what works for you. So finding our way into a forward fold single leg to begin with. So we're bringing the right foot in towards the left inside seam of the left leg. And then maybe taking that left leg out towards the side ever so slightly towards the left side. Maybe you incorporate a prop underneath that right leg if it's hovering in the air. And then just coming to take a moment to find length through the spine. Finding a sense of engagement through that left leg, coming to lift, bring the toes towards the face. So we're flexing the foot so the heel might lift ever so slightly before placing that leg back down. And the hands might be behind you or maybe they're in front of you. But we're finding length through the spine. We're not dumping into our backs. The spine is nice and long. Maybe you stay here, or maybe you walk the hands forward down the left leg, coming to fold over the top. So we are slightly twisting the body to turn towards the left leg before we fold. And staying here for 2 to 3 rounds of breath. And then coming back up when you're ready, coming to unravel the legs, maybe taking a little wiggle and jiggle of the legs to loosen out what we just did on that side. And then we're coming over towards the right side, so extending that right leg long and bringing that left foot so it's on the inside seam of the right leg. Taking the right leg off towards an angle so it's not completely straight, and you might notice something very different on this side, maybe in comparison to the other side. Maybe the left leg is more open than the right side, or maybe it's not, maybe they're both the same. And maybe bringing the hands behind you, creating length through that spine, or maybe they're in front of you. if that flexibility is there for you and you want to come all the way forward, exploring what feels right for you. And just being mindful that are you compromising anywhere? Are you compromising any integrity in this posture to be able to pull yourself forward? And when you feel ready, coming back out, extending the legs nice and long, maybe taking those little shakes through the legs as we then find our way onto the mat with our backs onto the mat, bending the knees, feet are planted firmly on the floor. And transitioning next into bridge pose. So bring the hands beside the body, palms are facing down. Maybe scooting the butt a little bit forward towards the heels. And really bringing the awareness into the feet, into that sense of engagement through the big toe, the little toe, the heel. And bringing some awareness to the inner thighs. And then bringing the awareness into the hips, into the pelvis. So we are scooping the tailbone under so that the lower part of your back is flat towards the mat. And then next we're firming down into the feet, and as we do so, lifting the hips up towards the ceiling, finding bridge pose. The chin is towards the chest. Bringing awareness to the inner thighs. Are the knees splaying out to the side? Can we keep everything locked in and engaged in towards the middle? And then coming back down. We're going to try that one more time, but maybe exploring your version. So this time it might be that you want to take the feet a bit wider. Maybe the feet are more narrow. Just finding anything that feels right for you. Maybe you even incorporate a block or a prop into the middle of the thighs to find that sense of engagement. So when you're ready, we're going to come to find our bridge. So we're lifting the hips up towards the ceiling. Maybe this time you want to tuck the shoulders underneath the back a little bit. If it's there for you, maybe you're even interlacing the fingers and hands underneath the back. And taking 1 to 2 rounds of breath here. And before coming back down, untucking the shoulders if you took that option, lifting, lowering the hips nice and gently down towards the mat. Removing any props if you took that option here. And then when you feel ready on your next breath, we're bringing the knees in towards the chest. Hands towards the shins, towards the kneecaps, giving ourselves a nice little squeeze. Thighs towards the stomach, towards the chest. Maybe the forearms wrap across the front of the shins. Hands take a hold of opposite elbows. And you find some little rocks side to side before finding some stillness. And then when you feel ready, coming to extend the legs out nice and long, taking the arms out nice and wide beside us, coming to find your final resting pose, your Shavasana. We're going to be here for maybe 1 to 2 minutes, but also feel free to leave your practice here if you are finished today. And coming maybe to close down the eyes or taking a soft gaze if you are finding your Shavasana. And just allowing the body, the mind to rest here.
ready, start to bring some awareness back to the body. Maybe to begin with into the fingertips, into the toes. And taking some little wiggles, some little movements. And then extending that movement maybe into the wrists, into the ankles. Before bringing the legs together, arms overhead, taking a nice long body stretch, sending the fingertips towards the top of the room, the tippy toes towards the front of the room. And then coming over to one side as we find our way up into a seat. The eyes might be closed down still. And bring the hands maybe to join at heart center, palms meet. Thumbs are coming in towards the heart. Or maybe the hands are away from the body. And taking a moment to acknowledge yourself, acknowledge your practice here today. To your efforts of showing up on the mat. For honouring your body, honouring your practice. Namaste. Thank you guys. Wishing you a great day, evening, morning. Take care.